Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. Rob, why don't you tell everyone what we have coming this week?
Yes, well, unless if you're hearing this, then nothing earth-shattering happened this week, and we've already recorded the intro and the episode, and we are honoured, I think is the right word, despite me tripping over my words there, to have an episode fully featuring a chat with Pitlane Paul, our roving reporter who has phoned in a report every week from the pit lane as he works for Valtteri. For any of those new listeners that aren't familiar for who he is, and we got the pleasure of sitting down with him for, well, it's a long one, guys, just over an hour, where me, Brian and Paul picked apart our highs, lows, best bits, worst bits of the season so far and make some bold predictions for the second half. So let's take a listen what happened when we spoke to Paul. Okay, so we have a very special episode this week where we're going to take the moment to take a look back over the season so far, wander down memory lane, and take a look ahead to what may lie in part two of the season. But you don't want to just hear me and Brian talk about that. You want to probably hear about the guy that's been helping us out all season as our voice on the ground. So welcome back, Pitlane Paul.
Hey guys. How's
Paul,
it going?
welcome back. It's great to have you here. And thank you for A, doing this, but also B, letting the listeners ask you some questions, fellow Dirty Siders, getting some questions in. And we had questions submitted for Pitlane Paul. So Rob, do you want to kind of hit some of the questions that we got for Paul? And Paul hasn't seen these in advance. He has not seen these in advance.
Great. I'm going to insert one of my own first before we get, just to warm you up. Did you intentionally go off doing a travel piece for us with all these little facts from the countries when you phone in your post-race thing? Or did it just kind of happen? I can't remember which race it was when you suddenly started giving us geographical facts.
Australia.
And then you've done it. Was it Australia? And you've done it every time since, and it's fantastic.
It's so good.
Well, where did that come from?
I don't. Do you know? I think. Reviews they're not hard. They're not easy. But like if you have some races, let's be fair, can just do the same thing over and over again. So, you probably guess I can be a little bit moody and down and depressed sometimes with some of the races. So I thought, well, how can I inject a little bit of, a little bit of life, a little bit of a little bit of entertainment away from the track. So yeah, I actually just look for obscure facts about countries. I just think, I'm not going to go back to my full breakdown of France because I'll have a meltdown. I was sat there during the race and I was actually looking at facts of France because it was a lot more exciting than what was actually going on the TV. So
I love
so
it.
It really depends. It depends on where it is, B, how exciting the race is, and and let's be fair, you wouldn't really get this, I don't think, Brian. It's the same as you guys and the Canadians, but England, Australia, we have, or UK and Australia, shall I say, we have it's always like a big rivalry. So there's, it's always this big sort of clash. I think it was the first one I did it in. Yeah, that was more than likely I was just trying to pick on Australians, to be honest with you, which is amazing because I actually really like Australians, good people.
I get it. I've watched enough Top Gear in my life to have a little insight into. I've watched all those episodes 100 times, so I've always appreciated some of that rivalry. And you did that, by the way. Can we just give you a shout out when you did the Australian one? The next day, Sky Sports did an Australian quiz with Danny Rick, and they asked half of your questions. As well.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
there you go.
And you did it better. I'm just being honest.
Right. Okay.
Well, cutting edge reporting.
Yes, it is, and we love it. Right. Okay. So, first question, but he was cheeky and he sent in two. So Renato, who was one of our first 100 Seconds of DRS guests, has submitted two to us, which was the first one is which circuit, either current or not, has got the best paddock club or media amenities, and which one has the worst?
Oh, that's a nice one to throw in from the start. Do you know the media? So the media. If we're talking about your general press, so there's a media center at every circuit. Now that'll be on the first floor, second floor, third floor, whatever. But and it's basically a giant room lined with desks, internet connections, and every person in the media has their place they go to, and they sit there and obviously now with photography being all digital, your photographers will all go there, sit at a desk, and then you sort of get your photos within 10 minutes of them happening. So we've got a media center. The media centers are all sort of the same. I can't say which one would be the best or the worst because I won't lie, I don't really ever dabble in the media area. Paddock Club. Now this is much more in my alleyway because right, Paddock Club. So again, Paddock Club, it can completely depend on the circuit and the country. So you'll have a Paddock Club in Port Ricard, which, I wouldn't say it was overly exciting. I wouldn't say, it would be pretty much like the race. I wouldn't say it was a world-beaten paddock. If you want a good Paddock Club, a real good party one, I'm just trying to think of locations as well. So Monaco's okay, but it's in a really strange place. Like it's where the hospitality is. So Raskas Corners, you really get to see Raskas Corner. Other paddock clubs, Budapest is always lively. That's always quite a lively, big, like kicking off one. Texas is very good. But do you know that the thing with paddock club, and I say this a lot, is like everyone wants to be in the pit lane. Everyone wants to be, in the paddock. It's a buzz place to be. Then you have paddock club, which is just above the paddock. And you'll sell tickets in there for, it'll be $6,000 maybe for a weekend to go into Paddock Club. But, all you really see is the start-finish straight. So, like, you're paying $6,000 to watch a car, or obviously lots of cars, just driving in a straight line. So the reason I said Austin is Austin's actually... so there's you can't call it a stadium complex because not the right word for it. But there's an area in Austin, I think it's towards the end of the lap, you basically a section of corners within an arena almost. And that's where the Paddock Club is in Austin. So value for money, I would say Austin is the better one, and it's Austin, so they do things bigger and better. Mexico also is very good, the location. So the Paddock Club there is within the baseball stadium. So
no way.
And I just think like the paddock clubs are good, but for me, I just think you appreciate an F1 car driving fast, and once you've seen it drive past you fast, you don't really see much else. And from the start finish straight, when the paddock clubs are there, sometimes you can't even see the pit box below you, so you can't see pit stops. You'll see the start of the race. And I just think it's a lot of money to spend to stand and watch a car go in a straight line, personally. So I would say best paddock club, I'm probably going to go for Austin in Mexico for purely the location. Come to think of it, Sao Paulo isn't so bad either, but yeah. I would go Austin, Mexico. I honestly would go Austin,
It's like Paul
Mexico.
ticking off all the best parties that he's had. And
Do you know, the weird thing is, you're sort of right. Because, again, like we don't really get to go into we don't go into paddock club. It's not nothing. I go up there occasionally. If I got guests and guests are going up there, I'll occasionally go. But people like my access, I can't get into paddock club with my access. Like it is,
wow.
it is not exclusive. It's not, like you can't just go in there. So I don't tend to go into many paddock clubs, to be honest with you. But the ones I've been into, they're okay, they're good, and okay. But again, for me, you're watching the car on a straight line. I'm not in for that personally. You go to a race, you always look, which corner can I sit on? What's the best corner to be sat on?
True.
And everyone, you think the main grandstand is the most expensive ticket. And I don't know, if you're a race fan, I just think you want to see corners, you want to see overtaking, you want to see breaking into turns. You want to see action, and just on a start finish straight. Nah, it's not for me. I'll never get it.
Tell you what, Renato, you got more out of that question I thought you were probably thinking you were going to get. And his second one, no, that's awesome. And his second one is completely different, which is, in all your years in Formula One, who has left you the most starstruck that you've met? Now, you don't strike me as the type of guy to get starstruck, but I'm quite interested to see if you did.
Yeah, it's the weird thing. I don't really. I have done, and it's the strange thing. I would say, I think we've covered. For some reason, I've got a feeling we've covered this before on an episode, but I'd probably go for someone like David Beckham, just because he's such an imposing, famous character. But yeah, even with that, you know, like we had Prince Harry in the garage once, and I got some funny stories with Prince Harry actually. But that's for another time. But even with him, we weren't. I didn't, you know, you just sort of like, oh, you know, you are a little bit like, oh wow, cool. But yeah, you know, he comes and asks you something, and then before you know it, you're in a nightclub in Monaco, and he's chucking cushions at you so you can throw into the crowd. Otherwise, they get told off. But obviously, you know, I can say that now. He's not. He's not in line for the throne. So I suppose I can sort of get away with saying some of the Prince Harry stories.
I was going to say Prince Harry's a good one. I'm pretty sure Renato will take that. So then we get Tao from China. How did you decide to become a motorsport mechanic?
So that's quite a weirdly funny story. So I hate cars. Okay, first thing, I have no interest in cars at all. So growing up, and this, you know, Rob, you'll probably appreciate it, all I wanted to do was be a fireman. All I wanted to do growing up was be a fireman. Like, and I was just sort of like obsessed with becoming a fireman. And even through school, I was like, I want to be a fireman. And then I don't know if you have this in the States, but in the UK, you have a thing called work experience, where like your school will send you off to a company for a week, and like, you know, you can go and work for a company for a week, and you can sort of choose where you want to go. I chose the fire brigade, and they're like, oh, okay. And then they come through with all the placements for work experience. And I went to, as a Vauxhall garage with GM for America, but there's a Vauxhall garage in Evesham called Goodall's. And they said, oh, you're going to Goodall's? And I was like, why? They're like, well,
that's not what I asked.
I was just, and they said, well, you know, it's where you're being placed. I'm like, I hate cars. I got no interest. So I went there, and I can remember being there the first day. Like, can you drain the oil in this car? Yeah, cool, no problem. How do I do that? I said, well, you take the sun plug out. Like, okay, well, what's the sun plug? Well, no, like, you really know nothing about cars. I was like, well, no, of course. But around, you know, I loved F1 at this stage. So even though I didn't like cars, I still liked F1. It's like, look, I'm not one of these people who shies away from work. So I was like, okay, I'll do the week work experience, and then so on and so forth. And I did it, and yeah, it went well. I learned a bit about cars. Still wanted to be a fireman. Then we did the second week of work experience a few months down the line, fire brigade. Guess what? Back to Goodall's for a second week. I was like, you are kidding me. And I was so crushed. But like, again, you go there and you do, and I don't know what I did, but they actually offered me an apprenticeship there. Like, offered me the college course and going on an apprenticeship and go and learn to be a car mechanic. And I was like, do you know, like, I spoke to my mom in detail, and like, you know, getting into the fire brigade is actually quite tricky. It takes quite a lot. And so, like, after chatting with the family, Mum's like, well, you know, it is a career, the mechanic stuff. And, you know, so in the end, I sort of decided, well, okay, look, I'll go to college and qualify to be a mechanic. And it didn't really occur to me that off the back of that, I could actually then go, you know, I mean, I could go and work in F1 maybe if I was a mechanic. So I actually got a little bit of interest in dealing with cars. And I was still at college training to be a car mechanic when I went to BAR to start working on Formula One cars. So, like, at Evesham College, they do a rundown of what everyone's done at work. And, you know, oh, I replaced a gearbox on a Toyota. Someone's like, oh, I did this on a Vauxhall. Oh, I replaced wheel grounds on a Ford. And I'd be like, oh, I stripped the floor and the chassis of an F1 car. And everyone would be like, what?
Brilliant.
And that's quite honestly how it happened. So, like, yeah, if things would have panned out how I wanted them to do, I'd have been running into burning buildings and climbing ladders and squirting water about everywhere. But now I'm squirting champagne and, you know, doing stuff like that. So, hey, look, cool. Things work out. Everything happens for a reason. And,
exactly.
And I guess that was it. I still hate cars, by the way. Like, it's so funny because like people will say to me now, oh, when was it Mercedes? It was the worst because every car was a Mercedes. And someone would come to me and went like, oh, there's a B class or something in the car park. Can you go and have a what the hell? I don't know what a B class is. Like, what does it look like? So, like, well, you work for Mercedes. Like, yeah, but you know, I don't know what, you know. BMW. So BMWs, I'm sure you have them in America. I only found out a few years ago. Like if it's called like a 520, it's a 5 Series with a 2 liter engine. That's the way. Everyone says to me, like, oh, look, there's a 430 BMW down there, and I'd be like, I have no clue what you're talking about. So,
Brilliant.
You'll be amazed the amount of people who come to me with like, oh, can you give me some advice on cars? I'm like,
no, I can't.
Genuinely no.
So Matthew from China. Matthew from China wants to know how big a decision was it, and how easily did you decide to leave Merck and join Valtteri?
That's a great question. It was really hard, and the reason it's really hard is, I was with the team for so many years, and I think when it becomes part. Life's easy, isn't it? It's like any job. If you're settled in a job, it's a pretty cool job anyway, and you're settled in, and everything's fine, and you love the people you work with. But I always say I would struggle to work outside of Formula One, and the reason I say that is because it's sort of all I know. Like my skill set would be so good outside of Formula One. The problem I've got is I've got no idea what that industry would be, and it sounds stupid. It sounds crazy because there's loads of industries, but in my head, I know F1. I know F1 so well. It's natural that I continue doing it. So I guess I would never go to another team. So when Valtteri come and asked me, it was like, yeah, it wasn't a straight yes. It was a straight yes. Like it was. It was like, of course you go and do that. That's like, it's one of the most dream jobs anyone can have, and to even be considered for it was an honor like you'll never believe. And so it was always going to be a yes, but there is that time when you sit back and you think, I'm leaving this behind and leaving that behind. But it's Formula One. I just been playing cricket actually back over here, and I was playing for Mercedes against Alpine, and I got quite a few pelters when I came on, because the Alpine guys are like, hang on a minute, you work for Valtteri? And I don't know, that sort of thing. But everyone's, it's that industry. Everyone stays so close together. I see the guys all the time. We go out for beers, and like, I think if I wouldn't have taken the job, I think a few of them would have actually punched me anyway, because like it's such an opportunity. And so it was hard because I knew what I was leaving behind. But it was a relatively easy decision to say yes. But it's hard. It's hard to know that you're leaving that team behind, and it still hurts. I still live in the same town where the factory is based. I have to drive past it all the time, and it's part of like your DNA now. I'll always be a Mercedes person.
Well, on a completely opposite end of going from the deep and meaningful career change questions to one that bizarrely was asked by about 6 different people, which was Jake, Andrew, Laura, and Maddie and Adam from the US, and Lee and Joe from the UK, all asked a question that was kind of the same, which I'm going to rephrase to kind of cover it, which is, which celebrity have you seen on the grid and just sort of shook your head and thought, wow, really? What are they here for? So not the most starstruck. Who's the most out-of-place celebrity you've ever seen on the F1 grid?
Oh, I'll tell you what. This is going to be the longest episode if I go on this route.
Don't name them all.
Do you know? I'm actually gonna sort of swerve this question a little bit, because there was in the Miami Grand Prix, when Martin Brundle's doing his grid walk.
Oh boy!
And he's walked.
Boy!
And he's gone up to some guy and he said, "Oh, you look an interesting guy. Who, tell me about yourself." And he replies like, "Oh, I'm a social media sensation, darling." And that guy, for me, I would never tire of slapping in the head, because who?
I remember that guy too.
Yeah, I just thought like, why are you there? And I think like you do get people you see on the grid and just think, "What? I don't understand but that guy summed up. And I am not knocking America here. I'll knock the Miami Grand Prix, because there was too many people on the grid and it was outright dangerous. It was ridiculous. But people like him have no place being at the track, because he has got no idea why he's there. All he's there for is try to raise his profile. And you see some guests, and it's there. You can tell they're VIPs, and they're so excited to be there. And you get that bloke and the reason I'm just going to choose him is because I still to this day do not understand who he was still.
we are not doing an investigation into who he was, because I remember it and I don't care enough to know. But you're totally right there.
Yeah, and but again, look, you get all sorts on the grid, and I was on the grid on Sunday in Budapest. I had two friends with me who are international cricket players, and for them it was like they wouldn't stop talking about like this is like the best day ever. It's like and these guys have represented their country, play the highest level of international cricket. They played in front of 90,000 people sat in stadiums, and for those, it was like the greatest honor to be able to go on that grid. And there you see people like that, and Serena Williams as well. Like these people, they go on there with no real idea why they're there, and they're only there to boost their egos, and they make themselves look silly. And for me, I think you should have to do a quiz before you go onto the grid, and it should be like, because it's honestly, guys, it's such an honor to go on a grid of an F1 race. And
sorry,
go on.
No, I was just going to say after you, Paul. After you.
But for me, if you go on an F1 grid, it is something which is unique and amazing. So to have people just belittling it, I'm not upset by it. It sounds like I'm quite moody about the situation. I'm not. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for them, because that's going out to the world's media, and like you just think everyone in the world is watching you be a complete thing on camera. And you're like, wow, it's honestly, Brian, it's staggering that these people are allowed to go on there.
Last year at Circuit of the Americas, doing the trophy presentation, I'm actually a fan of Shaq. Like, he revolutionized basketball here in the States, and he's quite a successful businessman. However, they let him bring the trophies in that open-top Cadillac, if you remember that. And then he went up there. Yep. He went up there on the podium and he handed out the trophies, but he didn't understand the protocol. He'd clearly never seen a podium before. And so he just stands there next to the podium drivers, and he's 7'1" or 2" or whatever. So he's still on the flat part of the podium. He's still taller than all of the drivers, but he doesn't leave. He just stands in between first and second podiums the whole time. And I'm like, why is Shaq on the podium? And I love Shaq. I do. I mean, like, he's tremendous, and he's got a great personality, and he's done a lot for a lot of people in the States. But someone should have told him, hand the trophies, shake their hands, and get the hell off the podium, because it's not about you, Shaq. So that, like, stuff like that kind of bothers me, especially when America cheeses it up that way.
Well, they do. I mean, let's be honest with you. Shaq's absolutely welcome. When we used to go to Russia, we get Vladimir Putin go and hand the trophies out. So I'm happy for Shaq. Trust me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Shaq's going to greet you with a hug and a smile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that was all we had. So thank you for that, Paul, for answering all of those. So now we're just going to segue into, well, me and Brian can't believe we made it to the halfway point in the season, and we're still actually recording and people are still listening, so that's like cool. But there's actually been some racing that we should probably go over. So we just thought we'd round table it now, like kind of have a season so far. So going through the kind of topics that we've got the personal highlights. So as our guest, I'll let you kick us off, Paul, but for you, and it doesn't matter if it's a personal thing that's just something that happened, like, slapping Valtter's ass when he was in the stream. I don't know what you guys get up to, but what's your personal highlight of the season so far?
So that's a good question. I would say the first race, Bahrain, the first race with the new team, and obviously both cars getting points. Again, I've come from a team where if you finish second and third, you tend to be a little bit sad about it. And, that's not meant to sound trashy to Mercedes, just when your level is that high, if you come in second, then you've sort of lost. So it was a bit like, oh, okay, yeah, great. Second place, well done. So like I think we finished, I think it was 6th and 9th with Joe, 9th, Valtteri, I think. And it was as though the team had won. And like the reaction of the Alpha team, and it was just sort of like we had this like a party atmosphere and hospitality, music blaring. And I'm like, we've been at a podium, we just finished 6th. But again, for these people, it was such a because they haven't had success for a lot of years. And it was actually really nice to see that, that should be celebrated. And funny enough, it's something which Jacques said when he was on the episode, and it made me laugh because me and Jacques have sat down a lot and discussed the 99 VAR year. And when he said about, we actually weren't as bad as people made us out to be, because like you'd be finishing we'd be finishing eighth, so on and so forth. And, eighth place, you are right, eighth place is celebrated now, whereas back in 99 when we started, it wasn't. But to see a team celebrate a sixth in ninth place, whatever it was, and it was just like, wow. It was like, oh, okay, this is quite cool. And yeah, sadly, we haven't really progressed too much as a team. Since that, we keep flirting around the outside of any sort of success, but no, that was nice. I said it was my personal thing for the year, was actually just seeing people so smiling and happy about just getting points.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Brian? What's made you smile in the first half of the season?
Oh man, there's a lot. I'll hit a couple just at the highest level, and then I'll give you a real example. So one, the growth of F1 in America. Like, I love watching this. I love watching it progress here. It's no longer like a secret handshake club. I can actually say I'm an F1 fan, and someone may know what that means now, whereas 10 years ago, it was like, what's that? And it was, anyway, and even 20 years ago, it was even harder. So I love that. I love the Dirty Side community. I just love the people who participate in the podcast, who send questions. We are not the clickbait, screaming at each other group. And because of that, I think our listeners, the whole Dirty Side community, is really like fun. We can argue and discuss, but it's respectful, and I love it because I just like the way it's coming together. And I would say I loved Haas and Alfa Romeo, the start to the year for those two teams, to your point, Paul, that hadn't had the success recently, and Haas in particular is an American team that really came out of the toilet. I thought that was fun. But my number one for the year would be the British GP, because the last 10 laps or 14 laps of the British GP were friggin' amazing. So Carlos, gets his maiden win, which is cool, and he's kind of motoring off. But then Checo and Lewis and Charles and even Fernando stuck his nose in there. But really, Checo and Lewis and Charles, they were trading places for 5 laps in a row. And 2, 3, 4, like completely rejumbling every time around the track. And that close following we'd been promised, we've seen it a lot. But for me, just 10, 15 laps of chaos at the end of a race with amazing drivers and amazing cars at an amazing circuit. For me, when someone asks, what should I go watch that shows, why it's better than it's been years past, I would give them the last 15 laps of the British GP. So that's my answer, Rob. How about you, man?
I think I got kind of two. I got three, and they're all kind of different tracks, which is like on the racing, then it's Mick's first points. I was like just out of my seat cheering because it had been getting closer, and they'd been teasing, and then he'd get like unfortunate either DNFs through either his own issue or just through the car failing, and then when he finally nailed it, I was like, yes, Mick, yes, Mick. That was awesome. I don't know how you didn't mention it, but talking to a certain Mr. Villeneuve was like pretty high up there in the first half of the season.
Amazing.
But it's the weird thing about the podcast and the community. So it was that whole story that we told the other week, because I met them this time when I went down to the Hungary Grand Prix. I met the couple that had moved from California and had come to the sports bar. The reason they'd come to the sports bar to watch F1 is their neighbor back in California had told them about this F1 bar in my town that shows F1 that they'd heard about on a podcast they listened to. And then, as I met them, they took a selfie with me so they could send it back to the guy that listens in California. And poof, head exploded. It was like, what the hell do you want a picture of me for? I don't know, that's a selfish one. It's a bit of an ego thing, but oh my God, it was just weird.
I was when you sent me the message about the quote in the newspaper over in the UK, and like the Daily Express, when it's quite a big newspaper, and that sort of made me quite proud of you guys, because it was like, wow, like I was like, oh shit, okay, that's really good, So like, it was quite, that's quite a big deal.
Yeah, proud of us. You made it happen. Yeah, you should be proud of you.
Yeah, no, but it's it's your baby, isn't it? The podcast is your baby, and it's.
Yeah, the funny thing was, Paul, that I went through completely different set of emotions reading that. First off, when somebody sent me the link, and I'm and the headline was Villeneuve has interesting views on the budget cap or whatever it was, and I'm reading this story, I'm like, that's our interview. These well, I won't say it, but these people have stolen our interview. And I'm reading down. And it looks like it's buried on the final line of the final paragraph. Jacques Villeneuve was talking to the dirty side of the track. And then I went from outrage and anger to, oh my God.
Well, that's quite good.
And the cool thing is, it was sent to us by someone who's, a regular member of the Dirty Side, Lee, who's tremendous and amazing in his own right. So, like I said, the community. But since Rob had his own little thing in there, I got to add one more. I'm currently 498th in the global F1 fantasy league of 1.5 million people. So that's all I would add that as a highlight. Because, Rob's so far down, he needs a snorkel. But
yeah, well, if he needs a snorkel, then I don't know what I need. I'm long.
You're a little busy. You got a little busy going on.
But you could argue he's got lots of insider knowledge, so he'll be doing way better than he's doing.
You could argue that too.
And it would be a good argument. I mean, I suck. I wouldn't allow me to do anything on that. So yeah.
Well, so maybe that is the beginning into the personal lowlights or things that have, as you looked at the season so far, are there any things that kind of bring you guys down? Now I'm going to start with Rob on this one since you went last there, man. Things that you look at 2022 so far at summer break or winter break if you're on the other side of the equator. What would you say lowlights?
So I got two, and they are kind of both on a sort of variation on a theme, which is that I think I got a bit too excited about how the new reg's going to allow all the cars to follow, and the new regs would be a great leveler, and we'd get lots of teams challenging for wins. And all that really happened, so while the racing, absolutely, they can follow each other. We've had fantastic races. I can't disagree with that, but we're still with just two teams that can challenge for wins at the moment. All that's really happened is that one of them that has dominated for years didn't get the regs right and has fallen away, but they've just kind of been swapped in for Ferrari. So we're still really only looking at two teams that can challenge for wins at the moment, which was, I wanted it to be more. I wanted the midfield to close up a bit. I wanted to have that, maybe Lando grabbing a win, or I don't know. I wanted the pack to be a bit closer than they have been. And then the other low light is the fact that we're heading into the break pretty much knowing that the title's done. I want to be optimistic that it can get turned around, but we'll probably come onto this when we start talking about winners and losers of the first half. So I'm gonna keep my powder dry with my Ferrari rant.
Paul, how about you, my man?
Oh, the French Grand Prix, it's got to be. I'm not over it. Honestly, you travel to a country and it's so hot, and you invest your time and effort into obviously putting things on and putting a race on. And I swear down, that was just one of the most disappointing events. And we all knew it was going to be disappointing, but I sort of agree. I sort of agree a little bit with you, Rob. Whereas, I think it'd be nice to have seen some more teams fighting for any sort of victory. And we're all going to come on to Ferrari in a bit, aren't we? To be honest with you, that's going to happen. Yeah. It's gonna happen. And then I've got to be honest with you. I'm probably gonna go for Danny Rick as well, because I'm just he's a likable guy, he's a good guy, and I just think his career's just filtered. In my opinion, that obviously we had the fun with Piastri in the week. It's so blatantly obvious that Piastri is probably going to McLaren and Ricciardo's going to be out. And, there's some rumours going around that Ricciardo could head back to Alpine. But you know what? I just look at Ricciardo and just think, who would have him? And it's such a shame for a guy who has got the record he's got. So it's a toss-up between a French Grand Prix and Daniel Ricciardo. What a decision that is! I'll go Danny Rick because I so want him to. He's a good guy. He's a good driver, and I'm just looking at his career falling away. And it's such a shame. He's better than that. He is better than that.
This is going to be the lowest ebb of the pod, and hopefully we'll get back up to some happier times. But Brian, really, let's really sink us down to the depths.
Really bring us in. All right. So first, I would say Zhou's crash. That was scary. When you watch it on TV, and they don't show you any replays or have any of the team radio of the driver saying I'm all right for a handful of minutes, your heart sinks. And so watching that thing, when you saw it out of the corner of your eye, him flying across upside down, you had no idea he was trapped between the catch fence and all that stuff, is just a reminder of how dangerous this sport is. And I'm happy he was all right. But so for me, that was one. Two would be, we got to put my tire nerd hat on. I really don't like the free tire choice coming out of quali. Like, there's no strategy put into quali anymore. It's just run the softs, and then you get into the race, and you can do whatever the hell you want. And there should be strategy through the weekend. And so either make it totally free tire choice out of quali into the race, but then get rid of the compound rules. If you want to run medium, let them do it. Either have tire requirements or don't. And so to me, I'd like to see them bring back the Q2 tires coming into what you start on. And then the big one for me, and it's here now, is Ferrari. It's the reliability and the strategy. I would like to see the races won or lost on the track, not with bad strategy, not with poor ideas on when to pit, what tires to put on, team orders. It's so frustrating to watch that. I have a SAP stat here that so far through 2022, Charles has seven pole. He has pole 7 times. 7. Max has 3. But when you look at the wins, Max has 8 wins. Charles has 3. And that speaks volumes, by the way, just to close that out. The other people starting on pole this season have been Carlos, Checo, and George, all of them once and all of them first-timers, which is kind of exciting. But so to look at it, the fact that Charles has 7 poles and 3 wins, and Max is even a more aggressive flip of that, and it's not all on Charles. I mean, he made 1 mistake, yes, maybe 2 if you go back to Italy. But to me, the number of times the strategies have been horrible that Carlos has to fight back and say, stop inventing, or I'm not coming in. And he's basically become his biggest advocate, and Charles hasn't done that as much. And it's just, God, it pisses me off. Like, I don't understand. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm done.
No. Let's segue, because we were going to try to kind of go into kind of like, what winners and losers of the first half. So let's crack straight into losers, and let's just do the Ferrari thing.
Can I just quickly say, you mentioned Joe's crash. From our side, obviously that's our teammate, so we're quite well invested into what's going on with the accident. So, but what you guys see at home is no different from what we are getting at the track. And when I say that, is obviously we know it's a big crash, and then we don't have any communication then with the car either, and we have no line of communication in between the car, Joe, or the team. So while you guys are all sat at home waiting for news on anything going on, we are also doing that. Like everyone in the team, we have no idea what is going on with Joe in that car, and until the point where we'll get a message back from the safety car team once he's out of the car, and
wow.
Even for the time it took for them to extract him, which is quite a while actually. We are in the same boat. We have no idea, and
wow.
It's horrible because I'm sat there with Candice, who looks after all of his media stuff, and she's brilliant. But you can see the worry and everything on her face. His parents were there for the first day. Dad was over for the first time. Oh. His mom's lovely. So we're all sort of sat together, like it's like, oh, cool, and you don't know, and that's honestly a really good one you pulled up there. Yeah, we don't know. We are in no different a position to you guys when that's happening.
I never would have thought that was true. I thought you guys would have had the team radio or whatever it was that just doesn't get aired, and you guys have got direct line.
No.
Wow.
No, when something like that happens, obviously the car. I hate to use this word, and that's such a big crash. The car dies, so there's no way the car will just turn itself off. So yeah, I mean, there would be no way of communicating between the car and the team. The position that Joe was behind the fence, he was basically, he couldn't really get out.
Right.
So you're waiting on the medical teams and the extraction teams to be able to get him out. before anyone's going to give any information to whether our driver's okay. He was absolutely fine. I had a good laugh with him afterwards, which sounds bizarre considering how massive that crash was. But he's a great kid as well. Like, he's such a talent. He's such a good kid. But it's horrible, and it is horrible. And you look back. So when Roman had the crash in Bahrain,
right.
And the same thing for that. The guys down the house next door would be the same. They have no idea. They will have no idea until they get the communication back from the medical car and safety car. So yeah, it's a good point to raise there. Sorry for jumping in, but
I didn't.
Reasonably relevant.
I appreciate explaining that. I mean, because just as a fan watching it, I assumed that you guys had more, to Rob's point, insight, info, data, something available. But watching it at home, it's the Roman situation. It's, when they don't show you anything.
Yeah, of course.
And you don't hear anything. You're like, oh God, please just let me see him getting out of the car is what you're hoping for.
Yeah. And even with that, we don't have, the feed that we have at the track is exactly the same feed as you guys are watching. So it's not as if there's another 5 cameras that we can look at and see what's going on.
Yeah.
The first time we've seen the crash is when you guys have seen it on the replay, and that's yeah. Until the medical crew of radio back to the FIA, and then the FIA will just everything's fine, and that can be that'll be when you guys know. As soon as that goes to the FIA, that'll get picked up by the TV crews. Okay, let's show. So yeah,
wow.
It is scary. It is honestly, it's scary. It's horrific. That's the biggest biggest crash in Roman, to be fair, but I would say that was pretty scary. Yeah. That shouldn't be happening. But they always say accidents are always bad, but they have good outcomes eventually with regard to safety. So the likes of Silverstone and other circuits now there's an issue with that car going over and then dropping down behind that fence, which is ultimately what happened. And it wedged him between the fence and the barrier. You think, God forbid that car would have caught fire.
Right. How does he get out? Yeah.
He isn't getting out. That's the point.
Yeah.
And there's a lot changed since Roman's crash with the safety barriers. They realised, okay, that's quite stupid now. It was so freaky, Romance, with the way that the car hit. I mean, 9 out of 10, the car hits the barrier and spins off it. It just hit it in such a point with the nose of the car where he split the barrier. So it was so freaky. And again, with Joe, it's such a freaky, weird accident. But I can promise you now that every racetrack will now make sure there's some protection so that can't happen again.
Yeah.
So bad crashes are terrible, but they'll normally have for safety point of view, a good outcome, if that makes sense.
So talking of, just as a segue here, and not making light of it, but talking of things that have good outcomes, do we see that Ferrari can have a good outcome over this off-season? Let's dig into the disaster that has been Ferrari so far.
Just one stat as we get into this, because I'd like you guys' perspective on this. Like, when we started the year, I think, and Rob, I'd love your perspective, and Paul, yours as an insider. Red Bull and Ferrari, right, were the 2 top teams. And Mercedes had it all wrong, and they were figuring it out. And they were constantly trying to nip around the edges, right? Whatever they could grab it. But here we sit, 13 races in, and Mercedes is only 30 points behind Ferrari in the championship. 334 to 304. That is wicked close for a team that hasn't won a race. And it hasn't even, they've had a lot of podiums, and Mr. Consistency, George Russell, has been fantastic. But Ferrari now has the 2nd and 5th drivers in the championship. Like, well, how did this happen? I'm sorry, I'm getting back on my rant again, but that's unacceptable to have a car that is performing that way, even with the reliability challenges, to then hose it up with tire choices and pit strategies. I don't know, I'm done, sorry.
No, I think you're right, because what I think about the whole Ferrari thing, it's everybody's ridiculing the situation through all the different layers, right? So you got you and me as bozos, as a pod, as fans, we're allowed to trash people even if we think, even if we don't know what's going on. Then you got good old Paul here, phoning in his reviews. He's living and breathing it at the circuit and going, oh my God, what a Ferrari done. The thing that got me was the cool-down room where you had Max, Lewis and George, and they saw the Ferrari when Max
Hard
had
tires.
overtaken. They went, and Lewis goes, they were on hards. Like literally, Lewis is looking at that situation and going, what? And that, to me, summarised the whole moment of everyone thinks what's going on there is nuts. I mean, what do you hear at the track, Paul? Well, I mean, do people talk about it? I mean...
Oh, right. I mean, look, I'm gonna first lay a defense down for Ferrari on something. First, I said I am gonna go on the attack afterwards, so don't worry, Brian. It's easy for us to sit here as fans. You guys sit there as fans, even myself, because I'm not savvy to what they're doing. But it's easy to sit as a fan or from the outside and think you know what the best thing for that car and that team is. Now, the decision, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the decisions this year because, again, this will turn into be a feature film episode because you'll be there or there.
A three-parter.
The last race, so the hard tyres. The hard tyres are... there's nothing wrong as such with going on hard tyre. The hard tyres sometimes can work out very well for you. With regard to Hungary, as obviously you all have done some, probably you've done some hard tyre runs on Friday. You guys watch Friday practice, believe it or not, a lot more than I do. So you'll do some hard tyre runs. So you'll have a good idea, I would say, of what the hard tyre is going to do. And if they thought on the Friday that it worked well for their car, same as Alpine, say they did the same, and Haas, I think it was. So all these teams have done their running on hard tyres and thought, actually, the hard tyre is okay. We'll be able to do consistent laps. So you'll have your tyre data based on what the hard tyre is going to do. Now, I'm guessing here. This is no way in any way an inside scoop. But I would say one of the problems you might have had on Sunday at Budapest is the temperature is totally different. The track temperature is totally different. You've had rain, which is then... let's say washed the track, but then they are qualifying. So everyone in qualifying run your soft tires and so on and so forth. So after Friday, everyone's got their data for the hard tire, and they think the hard tire is obviously an okay tire. Now the races come Sunday. That's the only time then you're going to have a chance to run the hard tire again. But the track's been washed, as we call it, when it's rained. The track's green. It's. I would say it wasn't necessarily a mistake, I don't think, putting them on a hard tyre. What I would say was you've also got 7 other teams who haven't put them on a hard tyre. So somebody at Ferrari, so you'll always have a tyre engineer. So that tyre engineer at Ferrari at some point is sat there and gone, okay, the hard tyre might be good. We'll send the guys on this tyre, even though, regardless, it's a slower tyre. So the entire thing was done. You've only got to look at what Haas done. You've only got to look at what Alpine done. No hard tyre was working.
No.
So at the point where they made that pit stop, the hard tyre actually might have been a good tyre, but for whatever reason, I'm only guessing it's because the track was, let's say, washed. The hard tyre then wasn't working for anyone. But you've got to look at the situation around you. You can't just look at your car. And this is why I'm going to go into the Ferrari rant now. They seem to just look at them. They're so tunnel vision. This is my honest thing with Ferrari. They seem so tunnel vision towards their car, but they don't see everything else around them. Go back to Monaco when we had the issue with the intermediates, and everyone's on wet tires. The intermediate, some guys come in for intermediates, but all they're going to do, they're quicker. They're like 5 seconds quicker around Monaco at that stage. But you're only going to hit the back of the traffic, and guess what? You can't overtake.
Right.
So you've only got to look at everyone else on intermediate tyres. You've got to look at the fact the track's drying, and at some point in your head, you've got to go, light bulb on, this is silly to come in for intermediate tyres. And they didn't do that. And again, on Sunday, at some point, someone's got to sit there in that team and go, this is dumb. And I can't speak for Ferrari, but Mercedes, we have, during the race, you'll have a strategy, I can never say this, strategy team at the circuit, which will consist of 2 or 3 people. But back at Brackley, and they have live intercom, so it's literally talking, it's you have probably 20 people analysing. You'll have 4 people analysing your tyre data. You'll have 1 person monitoring team radio of every other car. You'll have 1 person monitoring Red Bull. You'll have 1 person monitoring Ferrari, watching what all these guys are doing. Ferrari have to have that system in place. They have to. They're a big enough team. So to not be able to see that the hard tyre was was not the tyre to be on that race, I find staggering. I really do. And I mean, like,
Brian's itching to get in here, Paul. We've got to unleash the Brian. Go, Brian.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It tunnel vision, and I'd add one, indecision. And what I mean by that, they started on the mediums. The soft runners came into pit. If we just go to Hungary, the soft runners came into pit. They followed on mediums. They left tread on that tire, or they left life in that tire. They went early, but it felt like they reacted to others. And then there was this indecision to say, what does our strategy look like? And they're watching people on hards, like you just said, that aren't working. And they're like, well, I guess we should go to hards like we'd planned. But go back one race prior to France. When Carlos,
don't take Paul back to France.
I have
sure
to.
You want to do?
This is the only time I've ever sworn on the internet from the account. I got so angry. When Carlos is out there and he's coming up behind Checo, and Carlos says, time to pit. And they say, stay out. And he says, I think I should pit. And they're like, stay out. And then he does a great overtake on Checo. And so Carlos is now in the middle of the overtake, and they get on the team radio. And, I can't tell exactly when it was because it's a little delayed, but it was clearly during the move. And they go, box, box. And he's like, I'm in the middle of something here. And then he takes all that time to get ahead. And then they have him pit. And then Mattia has to say that it was because the tire wouldn't make it to the end. You didn't know that 3 laps prior? You didn't see the battle coming up with Checo in front of you? And it's like every race, there's this indecision where they make a strategic call without knowing what that means for the next 30 laps until the race is done. And it feels like they're flying by the seat of their pants on each decision each time, and that tunnel vision on us versus the rest of the field, but also the lack of, they have plan D, plan E, but none of them actually account for what happens after I make this pit stop and what happens with these tires. And I know I'm oversimplifying. I know that's not the case. I know they have a lot of people working on it, but it never works. So whatever they're doing is broken at this point. Sorry, I'm done.
But here's the thing, though. So, and this is, I guess, my side looking in. I'm going to say they've got a lot of people working on it. And I'm going to say they've probably got a team of maybe 10, 15 people working on the race, working on the best plan for the race. Now, I can guarantee you that with the silver team I've just left, that would come down to one person. And that would come down to James Vowles on the pit wall, who ultimately will make the decision about what they're doing. He'll have the information coming into him, but it'll be him ultimately, and maybe Andrew Shelton, who will be involved. It will be like, that is what we're doing. And it will be like, bang, that's what we're doing. And I think maybe with Ferrari, maybe they're just a bit too Italian, a bit too panicky. And I reckon they might have, I don't know, let's say they got 6, 7 people all trying to make a decision, and none of them can. And that then causes, like you say, the indecision. I'm not going to guess. I really don't understand Ferrari. No one really understands Ferrari. I've chatted to the Red Bull guys after the race in Budapest, and they were like, I said, oh, good job. And they were like, yeah, well, don't say good job to us. Say good job to Ferrari. They gave it us. And it's just like, well, yeah, and you're exactly right. And the one thing which is really interesting, you mentioned it at the start, and I was looking on my phone, so I was sort of like, wow, it's quite interesting. I say race after race on my review that Mercedes always claw away in the Constructors' Championship, and you were right. They are what? They're 30 points behind Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari have got 4 wins. Like, they've won 4 races compared to Mercedes North.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And that is a ridiculous set. I mean, and the reason is, okay, a lot of it is technical. They have technical issues. But most of it is self-inflicted. And, Red Bull, Rob, you touched it at the start, and I think you're exactly right. The Constructors' Championship is done. Red Bull have won that. And I hate to say the Drivers' Championship is done. Yeah. Max isn't going to throw that away.
No.
I think you guys are saying, he doesn't even need to go to the next 3 races and he'll still be winning.
Yeah. Yeah, he
In-
can pack.
you know-
He can come back late from the summer, and Charles can try and win all three, and Max will still be leading.
Yeah.
We've got 9 left, haven't we?
Yeah, 9.
Yeah.
Rob,
So we're saying
we cut you off. I know you. Do you agree with sort of the tunnel vision and indecision and some of the challenges at Ferrari?
I'm just generally angry about it, and I agree with everything you said. It just they've always been my team. I've always loved the Ferrari for whatever reason from a young age, and I was massively happy during the Schumacher years. But oh man, it's painful being a Ferrari fan. It really is.
Okay, Rob. I'm gonna hit you. You're a fan going back. Sorry for any new listeners on the Dirty Songs. We're going to get a bit nostalgic here. Do you think, going back to the Schumacher era, that these mistakes would happen with Ross Brawn sat on that pit wall?
No, I don't, and I also don't know if is it Ross Brawn's decision? Is it also Schumacher's decision in the garage? Does the driver help lay down the law a bit more of this is how we're going to do it? Would Schumacher have had the instance, or is it all Ross Brawn? Because you're right. I don't think this happens with Ross Brawn there.
No, I mean Ross. I mean, when we worked for him, he was pretty hands-on. Well, you say this. You say the driver when the driver's in the car. The driver really isn't. You get angry drivers. You get Lewis, who's always, oh man, this is a silly bad strategy, man. What are we on these tires for? And all the drivers have their opinion on everything. Actually, the driver in the car, they never see the bigger picture. So for a driver sat in the car, they don't actually see the bigger
Right.
thing going on in the race. So they sort of have to react to what the guys on the pit wall are saying.
Yeah.
I mean, one that breaks all our hearts, weirdly, was Lando when he was winning in Russia last year.
Oh,
And he was like, oh, I'll stay out. And you're like, it was so full. It showed his inexperience because, what he's seeing is totally different to what the guys on the pit wall are seeing. And I think with Ferrari, the drivers, you can't really call the drivers on it because the drivers ain't going to know. They're going to be seeing what they're seeing. In their heads, they're like, wow, okay, everything's fine. But they don't see what's 5 laps down the line, what's 10 laps.
Yeah,
But again,
I wasn't on about in the race. I was kind of more thinking so say we have like a debacle where there's a strategy bad call or whatever there is. I don't get the sense that Charles is that vocal or
Correct.
takes the initiative or does anything afterwards in the race. Whereas I think Michael goes back into that garage with Ross and they have a debrief and they went, what the hell happened? Let's make sure that never happens again. And I could be way wide of the mark here, but I just see characters like Schumacher, probably Hamilton as well, that they are way more active post-race than I get from Charles is.
Yeah, I would say you were totally correct there, in all honesty. I mean, the driver, they all have a debrief. After each session, they have a debrief. After the race, they have a debrief. And I don't know. I think with Ferrari, I think the main problem Ferrari have right now is too many Chiefs, not enough Indians, or whatever the saying is. And I think that's half the battle. They got too many people who are making decisions, and it's screwing them because it almost seems from the inside looking out as though they're just, I don't say arguing between themselves because that's not fair, but you can't make this many decisions and this many bad decisions in a row. And every team makes bad decisions. Every team. I could promise you, there's not one team who are completely faultless in anything they do. However, when Ferrari are basically throwing away the Drivers' Championship and throwing away the Constructors' Championship, that is criminal for me.
Agreed.
They have the fastest car.
So
we're going to let this
go
go.
on, Brian.
Last thing, we have one stat to close this out, and then we're going to take a deep breath, and we're all going to enjoy the summer break without thinking about someone doing this thing. So here it is. The stat that I found interesting is about podiums so far this year. Lewis Hamilton, who was in a go-kart for the beginning of the season, and it's getting better, and his back, my back, and bouncing around, porpoising. He has 6 podiums at this point. Charles Leclerc, in the fastest car, one of the most talented drivers, who puts together the best qualifyings you've seen, has 5 podiums so far. So,
wow.
That's crazy. All right, moving on. Deep breath.
Moving on. So I think our losers of the season, we are unanimously awarding loser of the season to just the Ferrari organization. And we're going to move on and we'll say away from... I don't want to belittle Red Bull's achievements because they're being phenomenal and Max is deservedly just
Oh yeah, you got to. I mean,
he's winning races that he shouldn't win, and then he's gobbling up the gifts from Ferrari. But even when Ferrari don't give a gift, he's had times when he's just taken it to them. And Max is doing phenomenally.
8 wins on 3 poles. He's 80 points ahead of Charles.
Yeah.
He started 10th in Hungary, was 10 seconds ahead with a couple laps to go, and he did a 360 just to watch Charles go by to make sure they were hard tires, and then said they were hard tires, and then he passed them again to have more fun. Max, like, for me, just when I watch and Max doesn't win at this point, it's more a surprise. So, like, he is that good right now.
But I was going to
say,
say,
he deserves that credit. Sorry, we have a
no.
lot of Max fans. I wanted to make sure we like.
Well, same here.
I
I wanted to get us all everyone's opinion on who's your winner of the first half, but. And I didn't want to just always have Max because he's winning the championship, and he has been phenomenal, and he deserves all the accolades. But Paul, who's been your winner? What's your winner of the first half so far? It doesn't have to be race wins or anything like that, but who gets the Paul Harris winner of the first half of the season award?
I'm going to go for little Mick Schumacher, and the reason I'm going to go for him is he was under a little bit of pressure. I think, there's a lot of people saying that he wasn't up to it and so on and so forth. And having the name he's got is going to bring a lot of pressure. But the last few races, he got his first points, and the battle with some of the battles he's had, the battle with Max, the battles with Lewis, and he's really starting to show that actually there is something there with that kid. And yeah, you mentioned his first points. That was incredible. And yeah, I'm going to go for Mick because I think he's everyone in the world wants to see Mick Schumacher do well, and I think he's starting to deliver now. He's good.
Yeah. Who gets the SAP star?
I didn't know this was a question, so I have to share it amongst 3 people, and I'll go fast. So
no. It's a winner.
Yeah.
Winner, not winners.
It's a podium. And so I'd put Valtteri up there. And I know he hasn't had points in the last 4 races, but it's awesome to watch him do what he's doing at Alfa Romeo. And it's fun to watch him out there, I think, having fun. It sure looks like it. And he's great on my fantasy team as well. So I'd put Valtteri on my podium along with Checo, who hasn't melted from the pressure of being next. Now, he hasn't been as good the last few races. I don't know what's going on the last couple races. But don't forget, he's 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, 5 points behind Charles. So he's not far off 2nd. And when he was 2nd and everyone freaked out, are we going to have Red Bull competing? I like watching Checo do well. And so it's fun. He has his first pole this year as well, as I already mentioned. And anyway, but my top step is Carlos. For a guy who'd gone so long before a win, got his pole, got a win. He's now fighting for himself on the team radio, but he still seems to be well-liked amongst his other driver friends. I don't know. I'd put my 3 would be Checo, Carlos, and Valtteri in no particular order necessarily. Rob, do you have one like the good boy you're supposed to be, or do you have?
Yeah, well, I do because I understand the concept of a winner being singular. But
punk.
I mean, mine has already been taken because mine was Mick, and I got a funny feeling that one of you 2 would take it. So my backup winner.
Oh, you're second.
My backup winner, my winner. Now that my other winner's been taken, is Lando. I just think that McLaren hasn't been fantastic, and when you take the 3 big teams, he's kind of been up there as best of the rest. We often see that Lando almost has a bit like George, you don't even notice that he's racing, and then at the end you go, oh, he popped in 5th or 6th, and he's kind of just put in that car there all the time. I do think feel like he should have a faster car underneath him. If he did, I think he could challenge for wins as well. I think I actually prefer Lando to George, which is maybe a big shout, but yeah, Lando gets my winner of first half.
Not bad. I mean, I appreciate Lando very much. I wish he had listened to his, as Paul already said, team radio in Russia last year when it started drizzling and moved to Inters. But
okay, so we've got to close this out now with predictions, and there's no point. I don't think there's any point predicting drivers' champion or constructors' champion. So let's just go for any prediction you want to make for second half of the season. And I want to end on Paul, so I'll go first because I can do that. My prediction that I made at the beginning, before even a race had even been run, has already come true about Haas getting at least 30 points this season. So I mean, I'm awesome. But
You do know they got half of those points in the first 2 races, but okay.
Does it matter
Or 3
when they
races.
get gained? I mean, if I make a prediction that you told me was bold, that I said 30 for the entire season, and here we are at the halfway point.
You nailed it. I'm just
okay.
Just the white Ferrari ain't the white Ferrari people thought it was.
Hey, it's coming back. They've got points recently. Like, mixed points were recent as well. They're coming back. They're going to carry on going. So,
Austria. Yeah.
I don't even know if it is a bold prediction, really, but my prediction is that Lewis Hamilton becomes the first person to join the 300 club and win a race.
I like that.
Because no driver, as we did on the stats the other week, no driver that's ever hit the 300 GP stat has then gone on and won one beyond the 300 mark. And Lewis is going to do it. Brian, what's yours?
I
think. Let me guess. You got three predictions.
No, I don't. I think we're going to see Mercedes take second place in the constructor, and I think you're going to see them win some races here. I don't know if it'll be Lewis or George, and I don't know how many, but I think there's a clear arc of that team from low to high, and it's on its way up. And so for me, I would say you're going to see a continued improved Mercedes, and I think we'll have 3 teams battling for wins regularly in the races, and it'll still be Red Bull, Ferrari, but Mercedes won't be so much of an afterthought.
Which not wanting to beat back up on the whole Ferrari thing, it almost actually rams home the disappointment of the first half, because while it was just 2 teams and you should make hay while the sun shines, Mercedes are going to come into the mix. They're going to get some wins, and they're going to. The fact that the constructors and drivers has gone for me is not just because I believe Max will always outdo Charles. It's that sometimes Lewis will outdo Charles, and Lewis and George are going to take points off the Ferraris.
And my second fun one is that Fernando and Alpine are going to have a frosty relationship for the rest of the year.
Oh, yeah. So before I get your prediction, Paul, I meant to ask this right at the beginning on the questions for you. Have you ever been in a team where your driver has left mid-season, but they've still got to drive for you for the rest of the year? Like, because Alonso, everyone's treating it like Alonso has done the dirty on Alpine, he's gone to Aston, and he's never going to have to go back and face the consequences. Only he is in Spa. He still has to drive for Alpine for the rest of the year.
But he didn't tell them. That's the hard part, right? He didn't tell Otmar or anything.
Have you ever been in that situation? Or, like, what's it like knowing that your driver's not your driver, really, but he kind of is?
Oh, that's a question. It's a really good question. Not really. 'Cause, I mean, the drivers I've had is, we had Jensen. I guess Jensen leaving to go to McLaren. We knew that after the Brawn year, but the Brawn year was the Brawn year. Michael retired. Nico retired literally after the end of the season. So I guess Valtteri leaving to go to Alfa Romeo. That was the only time that we've really had that. Nah, it's what it is. A driver's just an employee. If he leaves, he leaves. You don't really get any animosity. I'd like to think not, and I'd like to think the Alonso situation, there won't be any animosity. I think it's an unusual move. If I'm being honest with you, I don't see the benefit of him going to Aston Martin. They clearly not got a quicker car, so it's a strange one with him. So I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of all of that deal and how it's gone. But no, they shouldn't be frosty. I think he's done such a good job there, so there'll be no reason to.
So getting back to what's your prediction then for the second half?
You sort of ruined it because mine was going to be that Mercedes win a race. I think like the fact we all predicted it.
The expert and myself agreeing on something here.
And I predicted Lewis is going to win, which by proxy means Mercedes are. So we're saying all 3 of us, right?
Yeah.
Rob, none of us listen to you.
Let me see. I don't know. I'm going to make I'm going to make a crazy one. I think the Drivers' Championship will be won in Austin this year.
Ooh, so how many is that before? I don't know the schedule.
I'm looking. I got it here. It's the 19th race. That would leave 3 behind it. Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi. So that would leave 3 full races for it to be clinched, which that's pretty far in advance. So that's a good one. I like that.
Okay. Well, we have that down now on record, so we'll check into that.
He didn't say by whom. Who will clinch it? Should we assume it's Charles?
Yeah, I wouldn't assume it was him. Nah, I think it's we've had that before with Lewis, who's been winning. I just think I think Rob, you touching at the start of the show where it's been a really good year for racing. It's been the new regulations have made it amazing to watch, and the race has been really good. But it's actually going to be, even on the back of that, a really boring season in the end, because the drivers' championship is going to be won at a canter, the constructors is going to be won at a canter, and you're going to be watching the last few races and just thinking, well, they're pointless exercises. So.
On that high point, no.
Yeah. No. It's gonna be great. But like I said, it's a shame. It's a shame that it hasn't been close at the front. I think it isn't close in the title, and I think it's something we get to look forward to next year, because Mercedes are gonna fix the issue over the winter with the car. That's obvious. Ferrari will get it together. That Red Bull are gonna stay where they are. If McLaren and likes, yeah, I'm a bit with you guys. I want to see 2023 being a lot racier, a lot more teams being at the front. I just think this year it's going to be like, it's going to be over quickly. Like, I think and the problem is we're all living on the excitement of 2021.
Right.
And not every year is like that. So, we need to keep it realistic.
If we had to take this year, and I'm loving it because each race has better racing. If that's the byproduct, if someone said, look, you're going to have this sealed up, if it is in Austin, with 3 races left, I'd still rather take this version of each race being better. And even if it doesn't mean a fight for the titles, I'd love to then have better racing and fight for the title. But I am loving the following. And from the first race in Bahrain, even through to Hungary so far, we've had so many good battles through the midfield and the front, even at the back. Yep. And it's just fun to watch. So
it's great. It's a really good year. It has improved. The races are good. Like you said, Budapest traditionally is one of the races I like. Okay, it's great, but not a lot happens. And look at it, it was excellent. Even Silverstone isn't really a big overtaking circuit. It's too high speed, and like you say, that was one of the highlights of the decade. I'd say with F1, it was like, so yeah, clearly it's working. It'll get there. I think, like you say, if Ferrari get themselves kicked into gear over the summer break, which hopefully they will, and they can come out in the second half and make the correct calls. Mercedes are going to clearly, they're improving. The end of the year might be really, really exciting. It might get closer.
I was going to say, if you want to go down the optimistic route, my view of Mercedes coming into the picture could actually be the other way around. If you get Ferrari come out of the break and win a couple of races and outdo Max, and then Mercedes start coming in and taking those points, then maybe they take the points off Red Bull, and now suddenly Charles can win a race, and rather than it being just the 8-point delta or whatever it is between first and second, if Lewis or George pops one in on second and Max is suddenly third a couple of times, well, now that's a bigger delta and we chip away at that lead. I want to see it happen. I don't think we will, but it could. So anyway,
I think there's more chance of that happening than you think. If I'm being honest, I would say there's more of a chance at the end of this year being a lot more racing between 3 teams than it not. So Mercedes are getting there. The car performance, they got pole position. Like, hey, it was the track had a big thing to play on that, but they're still getting. You look at where they were in March to where they are now in terms of even lap time. Yeah, okay, they're not gonna put together a 5-race winning streak, but you are correct. They will start taking points off of those guys. You look at how Lewis is also getting podiums. George is, you didn't have that at the start of the year. So, like I said, optimistic. I reckon the end of the year could be quite good fun, but I still think the Drivers' Championship will be over quite quickly. Yeah. My personal point.
Cool. Well, this has been epic. It's been great to have our roving reporter back in front of us again. And for those that are just listening on the pod who obviously can't see video, Paul is sporting the Paul Ricard bucket hat, which is
fantastic.
It's fantastic. Oh, by the way, and on the Bottas theme, if we are going to get a random, sometimes Formula One, most seasons actually, Formula One will throw up some kind of random freak result where someone wins that you're not expecting. I truly hope Valtteri can do that this year. I think that would be absolutely amazing. And as Melissa down the pub that I go to watch the F1 in says, Valtteri deserves more. He's such a good guy. He deserves more. So I wish you guys the best of luck in the second half. And if you don't mind to carry on phoning those reports in, we so appreciate it, and we love what we're learning about the tracks and the countries as well.
The listeners love it too. I mean, like we've on the 100 seconds of DRS, a lot of people point out how great your reports are. So just know that it's much appreciated.
It's good. It's good fun to do, and like I say, you guys need it. While we're on the subject of random things, very quickly, Brian, I noticed a couple of episodes ago where Rob's friend Ben was on from Evesham in Worcestershire, and just for the record, I also attended Hogwarts, or in our case, St. Egwin's.
What was the name? It was the Highness, the Majesty's Royal Highness School of Finishing for Young Lads.
Yeah. Do you know what? If you actually went to those schools, trust me, they sound a lot more glamorous. I can promise you that now. They sound a lot more glamorous than they actually were.
No, we just name the school after the town and call it a day. There's no creativity around here in the States.
Oh, no, because there are two high schools in Evesham. There is Prince Henry's, which is the creme de la creme, and there is actually Evesham High School. So there is, but no one. If you went to Evesham High School, you're working in GP2, go to Prince Henry's, you're working in Formula One. So that's a way of working.
And there's the soundbite for the episode. Cool. Okay, so we'll leave you to go off and enjoy your summer. Sort out your strategy for how and when you're getting Valtteri on the show, and. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. And I believe you are going off on. You mentioned on your last report, you've got a bike race in the States coming up, right?
Yeah. So I head out to Colorado on Tuesday. Then there's some bike event in Steamboat, some gravel bike racing, and then we're actually the company that runs it's like 3,000 riders. It's pretty big. And then the company that do that, we're actually taking that to Europe next year with Valtteri. We're going to run the USA style event in Finland, in just north of Helsinki, where Valtteri lives. So yeah, it's going to be really exciting time to actually do the bike. I'm actually doing the bike race, which is quite comical. And yeah, any visit to the States is brilliant. I love it over there. It's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to getting over again and having a couple of Miller Lights and relaxing. And I'm a bit.
Aren't you a finely tuned athlete getting ready for their big biking event?
Yeah, I only said one Miller Lite.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fine. It's actually good. It gets your electrolytes replenished in advance.
Exactly.
Your carbo loading is what it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's that's what it is. It's all about getting the right amount of liquids into your body on a bike race. So if you can stock up beforehand and make sure you got enough liquid in, then it's all performance training, Rob.
Yeah, Rob wouldn't understand.
No, obviously not. So, we wish you all the best of luck with that. Hopefully you don't fall off and injure yourself, and you have a great result, and you have a great summer break, and we will look forward to hearing your report from Spa. So thanks again, Paul.
Yeah, Paul, thanks so much, man. Always appreciate it.
Pleasure, guys. Keep up the good work.
Once again, Paul, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed it. And for all the Dirty Siders thinking about what's coming next, in a week's time, we'll be back with a preview of Spa, my favorite track. Can't wait. We'll kind of talk through that and maybe have a few other items we want to cover. But as always, be well, be safe, and we'll see you in a week.